All right, so I've been reading some of the Epstein files when I have a chance, and also I listened to the testimony of Sasha Riley and George Tonks on Substack. And one of the things I've noticed is that there's a lot of these victims, these children, are being found and located because they were runaways or they're homeless somehow. So that's pretty disturbing, but particularly in my case, considering I have friends and family members when I was growing up who ran away, and I myself ran away 3 times as a child. So I don't think I'll have time to talk about all 3 times, but I just want to share my experience really with the first time and what happened. So basically it started when I was a toddler, pretty much before I can remember. One of my parents was deployed, and another my other parent who was caring for me, something happened, and which led to my siblings and I having to be raised by relatives. So I lived with several relatives. I don't remember all of them, but the relatives that I moved with when I was 4 or 5, I actually remember moving there. And they were, I'm not going to say they were entirely abusive, but, they tried to be very loving and caring. But there were times where they made threats to us and, said things like, if you call the police on us, basically what's going to happen is you're going to be put into foster care, and the grass isn't always greener on the other side. And they always tell us stories about what would happen in foster care and how kids were sexually assaulted and basically went from home to home. And I don't know if all that was true, but those were the stories that they told us, basically to scare us, and that we would never want to try to report them for anything, And there was never any sexual abuse with those relatives. It was mostly verbal abuse. And, when I think back at it, really is, just saying, making that threat that if you call the police, you're going to end up in that situation. It was pretty abusive. But when I was older, or when we were older, we ended up living with other relatives. And this time there was sexual abuse. So this went on for 3 years. When it first happened, it was basically this male relative exposed himself to me, and I was 13 years old at the time, and made other advances and mostly touching. But I told my female relatives about it, and basically they did nothing. They tried to say it was my fault somehow. And when I tried to move back with my other relatives, they wouldn't let me. So for me, I felt pretty much trapped in the situation. And some of the other things that he did over the years was he told me basically I had to tell him goodnight every night. And then he would do things like pull me into his bed and just basically, I'm not going to go into details, but he would ask me questions about if I had ever done things with boys before, and then he would tell me that eventually he was going to rape me. So I constantly had this threat that that I was going to be raped. So another thing he did was he would tell me when I was in the bathroom that I couldn't close the window. I couldn't try to cover myself in any way, and if I did, I got yelled at and other things. But so that's the situation I was living in, and I was made to feel like it was my fault, and he was a Vietnam vet, disabled Vietnam vet, so the people in my family that knew he was doing this, they tried to, they felt sorry for him, so they protected him instead of trying to do something about it. They protected him, and eventually got to the point where I'd been living there for 3 years and going through this for 3 years, and he ended up getting his rifle and just started shooting at his kids, and everyone had to escape the house, and there was a stakedown, and the whole neighborhood was evacuated. And at that point, I just hitched a ride, and that was the first time I ran away. I just hitched a ride with one of my cousins to go back to. So I just arrived, and one of the relatives wouldn't take me, and one did. So that was my first situation running away. And honestly, I couldn't imagine staying there. Just the idea of staying there after that, even though the state took his weapons or whatever, I just, there was no way. So if my relatives wouldn't have taken me back and I didn't have somebody to be with, I probably would be in the same situation as a lot of these kids, getting trafficked.